But the first one we got is from Milk Road AI. It's a long one, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But he goes on to say Anthropic just released the most important chart in the AI labor debate. This comes from the company that builds Claude using data from 2 million real conversations. And it's a chart that kind of went viral over this past week of basically showing where Anthropic is seeing AI adoption and real production quality in different segments of the economy. And so you can think of that as like really heavily used in management, in business and finance, in architecture, in design, and a lot less in things like agriculture or transportation or production. And so it's a really, to me, like a really interesting way of seeing where AI is starting to influence business and then where there's still a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, I think this one, well, first of all, I think the funniest thing about this was how many people had comments around this style of chart being impossible kind of to understand and why like a bar chart would have been superior. I think that was like the main comment that probably AI had about it.
AI's got to do then.
But I think if you spent the weekend playing around with Claude, like, which as you know from like the 1,000 texts I sent you, I did, there's nothing really that surprising here. I mean, I think once you start playing with these tools long enough, you just look around and you're like, okay, like what is safe from this thing being better at it than anything? And so you go down this list and you're like, okay, personal care, like, I think that one, my assumption is not something made for AI robots. Construction, repair, transportation, all those things I think eventually you can imagine AI being great at, but like there's not a path right now. And then you go into like education, arts, legal, architecture, engineering, computer math, business, finance, management. It's really good at a lot of those things. And so I don't think there's anything too groundbreaking here. I guess the thing that I really have found myself thinking about a lot though is where is it not strong? So like you see protective services, right? That's like, I believe it says protective services. And it's again, like I think security isn't like made for this yet. I think like self-driving planes, like full autonomous like flight, I guess that one is maybe a ways out, but you could see it coming. So I don't know. People should play with Claude all weekend and then they're going to end up driving themselves nuts about what they're going to do in the future. So
I think like just to close this one out, I mean, I think like people may look at this chart and be like, oh my God, AI is coming for our jobs. And, in some cases, maybe it is that it's going to not necessarily replace, but evolve jobs. But even we've talked about it, sales is high on the list here. And I think that's really enablement. We talked about why sales is really hard to replace a good salesperson. And so AI here is probably an accelerator to a good salesperson.
It's funny. I got a text from someone who's a former Meta employee, sent me a note about our previous podcast, about how when they were at Meta, they were totally convinced that Meta was trying to AI-fy out the salespeople. And because I made a joke about it in the previous podcast, and that person was like, no, that's not a joke. Like they are absolutely, that is like, you could feel it when you were there. And so, yeah, I think really great salespeople are not going anywhere. I continue to think that is the case. But I think if you're a tier 2 seller, this thing's coming for you.